Welcome to the Blair on the Air podcast. I am your host, Daniel Blair. I'm a violinist and music instructor here at Blair Academy for the Arts, and I am joined by the one, the only, the person with which, or whom which, all of our pianos would go awry, legendary certified piano technician, Brian Lynch of BD Lynch Piano, with the most gorgeous website of any piano tuner possibly in the world. I literally show people your website just as a brand because you got that white piano there. And I thought about that when we got that white piano in Copeland. But anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
You've actually been tuning pianos today.
I have been, yes.
I nabbed you over there. Yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, how's it going? How's the piano tuning life? It's kind of cold right now, so got more pianos going out of tune?
Yeah, pianos. Winter is a really bad time for pianos to go out of tune. So, yes.
You hear that, people? Get that piano tuned. So I have a question. You and I have talked some about this, but we have a lot of pianos at the Academy for a private place. I know educational institutions have far more.
Sure.
But we try to tune pianos twice a year, pretty much all pianos. And then probably the grands are going to be more like 4 times a year,
Quarterly.
maybe 6.
Yeah.
With the main one, we're using it for recitals or doing recordings. But what is the difference in maintaining a piano? Like, what can you see going? Because people have invested lots of money in pianos.
Mm-hmm.
When you're regularly there versus if you are there once every 2 years or something.
Well, first of all, there's a joke that we use amongst piano tuners that says the answer to the question, how often should I have my piano tuned, is how often do you want it in tune?
Yeah. Amen.
And,
I wish I could have it tuned every single week.
Yeah, and so obviously you have to find a balance between feasibility, budget, and having the piano sound good.
Yeah.
But to your question, I'm trying to accommodate stability and precision. Those are the two things that we want when I'm tuning a piano. And so the limiting factor in that is usually how far do I have to crank on the tuning pins in a piano.
Yeah.
And so the longer it goes, so a good example is here, because you have these pianos tuned on a regular basis, when I'm tuning them, to most people's ear, they're fine. They don't need to be tuned, but they do. And I'm moving them very small increments.
Yeah.
When I'm moving things back together in small increments, I can be more precise.
Yeah, so you have your tuning hammer. Do you have your tuning hammer with you?
I do, actually.
Can we see it?
Sure.
And I have a surprise. Boom! Free piano tuning lesson. Okay.
Right.
Did you know, I have actually, you do know this because I've
tuning hammer.
admitted it. I have tried to tune our pianos before.
Yes.
Our grand piano. So we
Right.
we started out at Blair Academy with Mom's piano and some donated pianos that, while we were very grateful for them, we knew that was not the end goal. We wanted to have high quality instruments for our students.
Sure.
All right, around the same time, Mom and I are knowing that the future of piano tuning in our area is diminishing in some, I don't want to say quality, but at least in people that we know, it's just harder and harder to get a piano
Sure.
tuned.
No, that's objectively true.
There's probably people that we don't know about, and so we're all going through this, and we managed to get our hands on our first grand piano. It was a Yamaha, it was a G2, I think, or was it a G3? Anyway, it was a G series.
G2, I believe, yeah.
I think it was a G2, and it sounded really nice. But we thought we got an amazing deal on it, and I think we did. But the price that we paid for it was, less than a new one or less than a C series.
Sure.
So I kept an extra hammer here, and right before recitals, if students had been banging on it, it would just go out of tune frequently. And I was like, oh, I can fix that. I got pretty intuitive ear.
Sure.
It was so much harder. I couldn't, I guess, set the pins.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a hammer,
It is.
and this is a pretty nice hammer, I think.
It is.
What are the leading hammer characteristics? Because that actually feels pretty light to me.
It's incredibly light. So, funny story there. When this hammer came in the mail, I pulled the box out. I was so excited to get this hammer. It's called a Fuyan, and it's made of carbon fiber, and then this is aluminum, and the tip is steel. So when I pulled the box out of the mailbox, it was just a bit longer than this hammer, and I remember thinking as I pulled it out, I was so disappointed because the box felt like you would expect the box to feel if it had nothing in it, right? So I'm thinking they forgot, they thought I ordered a tip or something. And there's nothing in here, there's nothing really in here. And so to my surprise, when I opened it, the hammer was in fact in there. It is incredibly light. That's of course hard to convey on the camera, but it's very, very light. But so being light helps with repetitive use injury. So you imagine if on an upright piano we have the hammer like this.
Okay, yeah. So here is I have an upright model somewhere. But I think it got broken. So here's
this is a Grand. Obviously.
This is a Grand.
Yeah.
Well, why is that so obvious though?
Because the hammers are going to, when we strike the key, this represents the string right here.
Okay.
And
so a piano is a stringed instrument.
Yes.
It's got probably a range of strings. Do they all have the same amount of strings?
No, because you have the progression from single strings in the low bass, and they go to double copper wound strings in the mid bass, and then eventually at some point, usually in the second or third octave, they switch from the wound strings over to the steels. And when they go to steels, there's now 3 steel strings. And so because of those differences, you're going to have a slightly different. It's going to be,
but it's more strings than the 88 keys.
220-ish is.
And each string has their own little pin. Is there a pin represented on here?
No,
I actually don't see that.
No, because that's a separate.
Because that's string tension.
Yeah, so this string would continue on. To roughly here, and then those little pins that you see sticking up out of the metal plate in a grand piano. That's what this fits on to.
I love opening the grand piano. I know that we've had some teachers even rigorously want us to shut the grand piano at all times to protect it and stuff. But I try to leave it open. I love kids to come in and as long as they're not hurting anything, discover how your instrument works.
Yeah, I usually get a pretty fascinating response when I pull the action out of a piano. So imagine all 88 of these. Like this, and I pull it into my lap out of the piano.
So this is
and people are
2
like,
keys. It's set up as one, but it looks.
I've never seen.
Yeah,
that before.
It looks pretty daunting.
It's pretty fascinating.
So this is what are the key parts that make a piano have it sound? Because I'm familiar basically only with this.
So this is what you guys see.
The button.
This is what you guys see, where the white key and the black key are. It's what you're seeing. So on pianos, the key balances like a seesaw on the balance rail right here.
I'm going to take some notes here.
Yeah.
You can keep going.
This is called a balance rail. And so actually when you take if you take the stack off of this, or you take the action out of an upright, which is a little bit different.
Oh yeah, so the upright, I'm going to try to represent this. I want to say it's more like this.
It is, but then the key comes
out
in this way. So imagine that we take the key out, and you actually
Is that why we feel such a difference?
You actually can. All right, now pull it back. Put it back up like you're going to do vertical. Yeah, so this is not exactly correct because the geometry is obviously different.
Yeah, the hammers would go the other way, I think.
But the key activates a hammer like this, and it would actually go that way.
So based on gravity, is that why the touch and the response on a grand feels so much better? I mean, the world's greatest upright, or the nicest uprights I've ever played, don't even close to compare to a well-built grand.
There are multiple reasons
in
for
just
that.
Response.
One of the reasons is because the grands, because they're starting with a more expensive, a nicer template, they tend to have nicer components in general. However, you are correct, because of the geometry, the way that the gravity plays into the touch. It's easier to affect the response that a piano should have.
I love this thing. I love kids coming in and playing it. So little tiny rabbit trail.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. The hammer is important because you've actually done some work on our hammers. So maintenance and outside of just tuning the string, what is important for the hammers in terms of all the things you tell me about that I forget?
Okay, so
how can that affect the sound?
Hammers affect the sound greatly. So when we tune a piano, we're dealing with pitch. And When we deal with hammers, we're dealing with tone. And a great example of the difference in pitch and tone is if we ask Willie Nelson and
Daniel Blair.
I have a better example. We have Willie Nelson and let's say Mariah Carey to both sing
Same
F4.
Yeah.
You know, some random key in the middle of the piano. They both can.
La. I don't know if that's right.
I mean, assuming Willie's not high, they can both hit that note accurately. They'll hit the pitch, but they'll sound nothing alike, right? They're going to sound very, very different from each other.
And
that's an example of tone. And with a piano, there's a couple of things. If the hammers are really hard, it will cause a thin
at the felt end.
So this is felt on the hammer, and if this is really hard, I mean the felt's going to be firm anyway, just the nature of how a hammer's made.
More like this hammer.
Yeah, if it's extremely hard and dense, then it will cause the tone to be thin and kind of harsh sounding.
Yeah, I feel like it accentuates the almost percussiveness of it. If you think about a xylophone or a lot of like the hammer dulcimer. Hammer dulcimer is probably a good.
Yeah, it is a good one. It will be brighter.
Yeah, but the attack will also be real quick.
It'll be very crisp and so the other extreme is if they were super soft, like it's a much less common problem. But if it were really soft, then the tone would be much muddier.
Yeah,
just be kind of fuzzy.
So
that's one thing. If the hammer is too hard, you're going to get really thin sound.
Does the age or quality of the string play dramatically into that, or is there kind of a standard for pianos?
So as long as the strings don't have oxidation, the age is not really a factor as long as they're the right tension, aka pitch.
In tune.
In tune.
Yeah.
However, the hammer is the big deciding factor in that, because as they age, they not only will often get hard, like an old hammer will be hard, but just as importantly is the geometry of the hammer, the shape of the hammer. It's this nice little teardrop shape, and everyone has seen these at some point.
Yeah.
And so the way that's designed, when it goes up and hits the string, there's actually just a tiny fraction of an inch of that hammer that's designed to actually strike the string. The weight behind it is important, but the strike point is very, very short and small.
Yeah.
And as the hammer ages, we've all seen the little string marks that get in the hammer.
Yeah.
Those aren't usually a problem unless they get really deep. But what also happens is that you get flat spots that wear on top of the hammer. And as that flat spot gets wider, then the contact point for the hammer, instead of being very, very small, now is super wide.
Yeah.
So the only thing that can happen is when the hammer hits the string, that entire area is now striking the string.
Yeah.
So instead of, say, a 1/16 of an inch, maybe you now have a strike point that's 1/3 of an inch.
Yeah.
Well, that is like this. You know, so that striking
punching that string.
So it doesn't allow the string to freely vibrate the way it wants to. So that can cause a whole host of problems. The tone is not only thin and bright; it's nasal and very. It's just obnoxious. It's really bad. And I run into that a good bit, and we can.
I don't know why I'm looking at like as if something is.
this
now that it's under the lights,
fine.
it sees. Well, so this you can't see that on this hammer.
No, but we can fix that. We can reshape the hammers back toward their original geometry.
Can we rabbit trail? I wasn't even on a list of things I want to tell you, but I don't know how it's not. We got to tell what we did to the escape room piano.
Oh my goodness! Wow,
that's literally. If you have me talk about the highlights of my life, they're usually accompanied by intense struggle. So I had an escape room, and in Kingsport. And we wanted to build out a room that had like a Batman-style secret code in the piano that opens something up.
Yeah.
Now, in escape rooms, generally you have low-voltage mag locks, similar to what you'd have at a secure building where you have to scan in or whatever. And that mag lock can, gravity can open something. You can release a spring. You can open a door. So what we did, and by we, I mean you, we went, and we were like super late nights. We're trying to figure this out. We got an old piano delivered, way out of tune, super old.
It was awful, yeah.
And we thought about how do we do this. So what we ended up doing was, I think we did take the action out, or at least some keys.
Yeah.
We figured out what keys we wanted to be the special keys, and then You took this off
Yeah,
so
I did,
seamlessly.
Well, I have a little experience with that.
Like, I saw you just pull it
it
out,
is a
and I was
real
like, and
model,
I will
so-
just pull it out. Okay, so they have these little thingies underneath, and I think we actually pulled this all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we pulled
Yeah.
this, and this kind of functions just to provide some, I think, lateral integrity.
Yeah, it
or-
keeps it keeps the keys from wobbling like this and pinching against other keys. It just keeps it in its lane, if you
So
will.
side question
Yeah.
on a grand piano. So the pedals, the right pedal is your basically sustains your tone. I think it holds this
Does
up.
all of them at
Yes,
once.
yes. So the strings can do that. The middle one has a variety of uses, and it's far less common to see it indicated in the music to use. It could be a practice pedal. It could be, what's the bassy thing called? Margo would be so disappointed in me right now.
But there's a bass sustain, what
I'm
a lot of people call it.
violinist, first of all.
When the middle is used as a bass sustain,
Is it like sostenuto?
no, that's what's on a really nice grand,
Okay.
and that's much more complex. And this one would have sostenuto, as I see the tab there, and I'll explain that. But some cheaper pianos or uprights will have a bass sustain, so that
Yeah.
maybe the middle pedal only raises these dampers in the bass section. So you want to hit an octave
Yeah.
in the bass and play something on top of
Yeah,
it.
because you don't want to get your playing to get all muddy. In fact,
But
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, general tip to pianists: use the pedal less. Unless
Right.
you're more advanced than I am, then I trust you. But if you feel like you are less advanced than me and you want to get better, use the pedal less. Okay.
This fancy little tab, and this right here is
Yeah.
moving. See that? That's called a sostenuto tab. And on nicer grands, the middle pedal is a sostenuto pedal almost invariably. And there's a metal rod that runs through the action that has a rib that sticks out, and it's usually orientated down while you play normally. So as these dampers are engaged, it's missing it, right, like this. So the sostenuto is pretty neat in that whatever keys you want to sustain, you can individually do it. So let's say you hit a chord and you want that chord to just hang in the air while
Yeah.
you play all the other keys, whatever.
Yeah.
You hit all the notes that are depressed at the time the sostenuto pedal is pressed. These tabs will be engaged by that
So
that
it
thing.
just lifts for.
It just holds these tabs.
That's so awesome
Yeah.
because then you have your like pedal points or pedal tones, and you can
Yeah.
like put something there and continue to play up here.
And it's usually only advanced, like people with years of classical piano training
Yeah.
that even know what a sostenuto pedal does. And even then, sometimes very accomplished pianos, I'm surprised that they don't even understand
Yeah.
what it does. So
Yeah.
it's not
I mean,
well
it's not
understood.
relevant.
It's for most of us don't really use the pedal, but it's quite a sophisticated apparatus. But yeah, that's what the middle pedal is in
then,
in a grand piano.
The far left pedal, it's our little quiet
Yeah,
pedal.
the soft pedal.
Yeah, so in the soft pedal, and I'm just trying to make guesses here,
Mm-hmm.
but I love looking in pianos, and we talk a lot. So there's usually some sort of felt thing in an upright that just leans against and dampens the strings, or is that just kind of our pianos?
It's one of the multiple ways that they accommodate.
So it's just they're physically muffling the strings. It's
yeah.
like,
There's
it's
a
like
there's
we're
a,
practically
there's a
this, and
yeah
now it's
exactly.
a
There's a
quiet.
band of felt that literally the pedal causes the band of felt to come between the
Yeah.
hammers and the strings.
Sometimes
So
it
you're
goes click, click.
Yeah. So you're
On the stopper.
striking the hammer striking the string through through the felt. The other way that a little more subtle way that
Also
some
for
uprights
uprights? Okay.
also for uprights is there will be a bar, like a metal bar behind the entire row of hammers.
Yeah,
And
it
when you
scoots
press
the
the
hammers
pedal,
closer,
it
doesn't
pushes
it?
the hammers closer.
Okay.
And all that
So
does is shorten the blow distance.
like the starting place
yeah.
might be
so
here.
instead of punching you from here, I punch you from here.
The
That's
1 inch punch.
You're right.
The
right.
piano
So-
becomes the 1 inch
Yes,
punch.
yes.
I would prefer you to strike me as close as possible.
But we got to.
Oh, yeah. So this would just bother you. Okay, so
Yeah,
but
it
on a
shortens the
grand,
blow distance.
On a grand, it
Yeah,
is
it's very fascinating. on a
It's
grand.
different. Yeah. So my question stemmed from this. So this keeps lateral movement, but on a grand, you'll see the keys shift. How's that work with this? Does
Okay,
this shift too?
it does. So the action will, like I mentioned before, will slide out into my lap. So this piece here, this wooden piece on the bottom, is called the bottom of the key bed.
Yeah.
And that all comes out. So underneath the key bed, at some point there's an indention that goes up into it.
Yeah.
And there's a metal bar coming from the bottom of the piano that goes in it. And when you push the soft pedal on the grand, that bar moves to the pianist's right. And so it shifts the entire action
It's so weird.
to the right just far enough that this hammer are now, the ones that are striking 3 strings are now striking 2 strings.
So
it's a very it seems like a
you don't know this, but I almost, because some pianos, it seems like they move more than others, or it might just be a really crisp, I guess, pedal, and it's just like, and others, as you're playing, you don't notice it as much. So I saw it on our newer C3, and I was like, man, that seems like it moves a lot. And in my brain, so kind of like I'm not a composer, but I've played a lot of music. So if you put music in front of me, I can do a lot. But if you ask me the rules for why that was, it's tough to reverse engineer it. So I'm going, is this normal? So I'm just trying to play and imagine, because like, that's a lot. And almost like the next time I saw you, I feel like you told me that another customer, I guess it's probably happened more than once, has asked you that, and you were kind of chuckling as if we both had this inside joke. It's like, obviously that's normal.
You never told me that.
No,
before.
I never. And I was like, yeah, it's totally normal.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many calls I get where the customer's like, I think there's something wrong. I'm like when I hit this pedal, like all the keys like move. They're like moving sideways.
I'm gonna see if I can replace this.
Yeah, so you'll wanna push up the whipping.
What's the whipping? Is that
We could spend an entire episode just going over this model. I think that's probably not the best use.
I've put this back on before. Okay, hang on. Let's try this. Hang on. Nobody move. We're going to set this right here. I'm going to get out a timer. And you can talk about anything you want. Okay, here we go. Little stopwatch. You ready? You hit that, and then I'm going to put this key back on.
Okay.
Ready, set, go.
All right, let's do
All right,
it.
and what I'm going to do is I know there's a little hole there and a little hole there.
There it is.
I'm close.
You got this. Yeah.
Oh, it's better from this angle. I had a bad. Oh wait,
Yeah.
I need this to be back
You
there.
do need that.
And stop.
Yeah.
Whew, that was pretty good. I
15
thought that was
seconds.
going to be worse
Just
than
a
it
hair
was.
over 15 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
That's better than now. Keep in mind that when you're doing this, if you had one key on a grand piano,
I can't get to the side like this.
You have keys on either side of it, so you have to.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, now is your turn. 15.34. Hang on. Gotta get it ready. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I wasn't touching this.
Okay.
Ready, set, go.
All right. You just-
All right, that was 4 seconds. Okay, whatever. That was with your tutelage. Okay, I'm going to put this to the side. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more. Oh, the escape
These are
room thing.
fast.
I'll
Yeah,
finish
yeah,
the
yeah,
escape
yeah.
room thing. Oh, that's literally why I got this. I got this at a guy that was moving away. It was like an estate sale.
Yeah.
And I have no actual use for it. I just want students to see it.
Yeah.
And they come in. And
I have a couple in
that's
there.
what happens in the grand
Fascinating,
piano. Okay, so we took this off. So I think we had 6 or 8 keys or something
There
at
were
the escape
several,
room.
yeah.
It's called Backstage Breakout. So the story was you went, the escape room would start in a small janitor's closet. And then you would discover items. That game might be still running. I don't think it's running right now, so I don't want to ruin it. But then you would go through a passageway when you'd figure it out, and you'd get into the band's green room. Ooh. And this was like based
cool.
on an 80s thing. And you actually wrote a song that we hired out and had people sing called, what was it called? Wait.
Cannot remember.
When you're running out of time.
That's
Yeah,
right, yeah.
I see leaving in your eyes. And this is like this 80s rock singer singing to this girl who was in love with the bass player and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So we wanted this Bruce Wayne style piano. So we took the key out, and then we had these metal contact things. So there are sensors that you can set to be in a certain sequence, and it reacts to metal. I think they're just electromagnets type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we mounted those. We screwed them up under the piano and mounted those just below the key. So they would have been right in here.
Right.
And then for the sensors, I think we just got washers and
You
glued
did,
them
Yeah.
glued them underneath the key, and then took this out. So when the key went down, there was a little cylinder kind of receiver, I guess, that came up. And then as you'd press the key, the proximity of the washer would
activate the trigger.
Yeah, so it's like just on your house or your car or whatever, it'd be like hitting a button, and then you could set your code. But the keys felt remarkably the same. And so you'd come in, boop, 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 and then the door would open and like the clues would fall out. It was so
Speaking
cool.
of the door, that was actually just under the bottom of the piano.
Yeah, we built it on the bottom of the piano, and then it would fall and bang really loud, and people would get scared. And the rewardingness of every once in a while, like a trained musician would be in there. And we had other clues. You could follow maps and count keys and stuff like that to learn it. People would be stuck on that clue for 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Unless you were a musician. If you could read music, then you'd be like, oh, do, 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 do. And it would open, take you 10 seconds. And people would just like worship this person in their group. Like, yes, yes, you're so amazing, Amy. And then she's like, well, I took piano when I was a kid. So that is definitely one of the highlights, to actually get a piano, figure out how all that stuff worked. Yeah. And then and we could have legitimately connected it to a secret door if we wanted to, because we had a secret door in there. And it's just do, 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 down to the back cave.
I mean, I see a lot of pianos, and it's still one of the coolest things I've ever done with a piano.
It's awesome. So
never tuned it, incidentally. It always sounded bad.
No, we wanted that honky-tonk feel. I'm going to set this to the side. So how did you wind up in this occupation? I mean, I know this, but you've done a ton of things in your... Can I hold on to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. You've done a ton of things from... working with your hands. You've done like machine shop stuff.
Yeah.
You were quite a spectacular athlete when you were younger, and then you have done a lot of singing and musical stuff. And I feel like there's other things that I'm missing. You've done some like event management, and then kind of like general office work and stuff like that. Yep. But what of those things have helped you arrive at piano tuning?
So the main thing was actually a hobby that I never really did as a job, and that was I loved photography. And
I forgot the photography one.
Photography, and the thing that was so engaging about photography to me was that this may be an archaic idea now, but everyone's familiar with it, so I'll use it. It's the left brain, right brain thing. So like the right brain was like creative, abstract, and then the left brain is like your scientist that, analyze things and organize things. So photography requires both of those things to be really good. So you want to be able to appreciate composition and light and things that are right brain. But if you don't care about learning how to get the right things out of your camera, what f-stops do, and what aperture is, and shutter speed, and how all that works together in the formula, then the other stuff's not going to happen for you. And so I really enjoyed both of those.
I hope we're in focus right now. So
yeah, I know, right? I enjoyed both of those aspects of photography, and I really loved it. And so you and I were having a conversation about piano tuning, and I guess before that, if you'd asked me about piano technicians, I knew they were a thing.
Yeah.
I knew people did that, but never really thought about what they did. But it turns out that piano technician work is very similar in that you really need to be able to care about details, tuning theory, all that stuff will bore you to tears if you're not detail oriented.
Yeah.
But then,
and you like learning new things.
I do. That's one of my strengths, I guess, is being able to
consume knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inquisitive. I like to learn about almost anything. So for piano work, you really need to be detail oriented. So that's kind of the left brain side of it. Like it's really important that you pay attention to details. But then, it's music. So
hopefully
my favorite part is when it's over, and just to play a freshly tuned piano, that just the way the harmonies just sing, and it's so satisfying. And so I think more than any other thing I've ever done, maybe outside of photography, it really pulls on both sides of that for me, and I find great satisfaction in anything that kind of scratches both sides of that.
We always use, for pretty much as long as I can remember, and there were other people that came in, but the late great Gary Stewart,
Yes.
the
Yes.
wizard of pianos. Oh man, I don't even think I have to explain, because any area musician who has been familiar with the piano, like every single person knew Gary.
Yeah.
Did he live in Bristol or Abingdon? He was like out there.
He lived in Bristol for
Yeah.
for most of
And he was the go-to for especially just piano knowledge and maintenance and rebuilding, because there's several tuners in the area. But as Gary was getting older and having some health problems, he was still like an advisor to us, but it just based on his volume limitations, it was just taking longer to get out. But it's like he's our friend. Like, we're not going to use anybody else.
Right.
He's really good.
Yeah.
He's taking care of us for forever. And so Mom and I were sitting down going, what does the area, if Gary continues to reduce his load, what does the area look like for piano tuning?
Yeah.
And so we started looking at our students. I literally just started going through my phone, and it's really difficult to have the skill set. So from my perspective, you have to have a studious ear. You have to be able to actually discern things. You have to have a working knowledge of how things should sound like when it's over. So that those kind of go hand in hand. You have to have good skills with your hands. You have to have kind of some engineering knowledge. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be trustworthy, kind of good with people to get the business, because you're going in people's houses.
Yeah.
But you got to be okay spending the majority of your time by yourself. So the people usually like people, so it's like, who can be trustworthy and consistent and be nice to people and responsible and show up, but then also not just hate their life being alone? Because that's what I would love to tune a piano one time. I'd be so proud of it. And I was like, whew, all right, where I need to go. I would literally rather hang out, and it goes both ways. I love teaching a 6-year-old how to squeak on a violin, and people constantly, their own parents, how do you do this all day?
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
The only thing I might not love about it is the ceiling of how many people I can teach. That's kind of it. So anyway, we're going through, and I'm thinking, and I have some other names that I was looking at. I almost talked to some people, and I'm like, what does it take to be a piano tuner and all this stuff? And I'm like, what about Brian? And I don't remember what you were doing at the time, but I know it wasn't anything close to piano tuning.
No, it was not.
Yeah. And Mom's like, And this is all predicated on like learning a lot and wanting to do it. But it's just like when you put all those pieces, like this is what has to be required. Mm-hmm. And then so I kind of floated the idea by with the goal of going, hey, I know there is a market and a need for this.
Yeah.
And I know that like you can tune our pianos. And I thought, best case scenario, Gary would let you observe a few times on our pianos.
Yeah.
But once you kind of went through the initial training, first of all, piano tuning courses or whatever, you went through that. Mm-hmm. What does that teach you and what does that not teach you?
Oh, yeah. So I was actually quite fortunate because there are a number of places you can get the education part of being a piano technician. Most of that is online. You do videos, you do tests, you submit videos, you have models you're working with similar to that one. So most of the theory and even a lot of the skill acquisition you can do alone and with proper courses online. But the main thing that makes a piano technician good is just simply repetition with this thing right here.
Yeah.
And there is so much that goes into there's so much that goes into setting a pin, which is what goes in there.
Yeah.
And the only way to get good at it is to do thousands and thousands of them.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate in that Gary. I met Gary when I needed to do my apprenticeship. I needed a mentor to finish to be certified, and Gary was slowing down his load at the time. He had been diagnosed with Parkinson's and was battling the symptoms of that, and so he could not have been more kind. I mean, he just welcomed me with open arms. He just poured into me, taught me everything he knew. So they teach
Yeah, I mean, you were out at his
I was at his shop,
You were
essentially.
rebuilding pianos.
I was there essentially every day, into the night sometimes. Yeah, to that point, the schooling teaches you the theory on how to tune and repair and regulate pianos. It does not teach you how to rebuild pianos, restore pianos. And Gary did that at his shop. He rebuilt like really nice old Steinways, old Mason Hamlins, things like that. And so he always had multiple pianos in the shop that were at some stage of being rebuilt. And so not only did I get to learn the art of rebuilding pianos, which is just incredibly rewarding to take an old piano and restore it to a beautiful playing instrument that can really, I mean, with a piano, you could take a Steinway from the 20s, and if you do a good rebuilding job on it, it'll compete with anything off their showroom floor. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's fascinating. But not only did I get to learn the rebuilding, I also got to practice a lot of tuning.
Yeah.
Because when you restring a piano, the strings stretch. I know it sounds wild. You're talking about steel strings, but they actually
they do on a violin.
They'll stretch dramatically when they're new.
There's significantly less pressure on it.
Well, there's thousands of pounds of pressure.
You got to break it in.
So they'll stretch so much that you tune it one night and you come back the next morning and it's just wildly out of tune again. And so you'll have to tune a piano at least 5 or 6 times before it ever leaves.
So side question, on a violin, we have 2 points where the string is essentially fixed. So you have, one is fixed. The other one is fixed, but you can adjust that point, right? So it goes into the tailpiece. You stretch it across the bridge, and then the string, kind of the functional part of what you hear, stops at the nut, but it goes beyond that and then gets tightened with a tuning peg. That is not geared in any way. It's just wedged into the hole in the peg box. So we tighten it, and we're always taught to tighten into the pitch, because if you loosen it, you increase the chance that it'll slip out. And so we tighten into that. But since the bridge is floating in the middle, we got four strings going across. If I pull on this E string, the bridge does this ever so slightly. So if I tune the E, tune the A, tune the D, tune the G, it kind of warps a little bit. And then that rebound E is now out of tune again, and I got to go through it again. Are there aspects of that when you're restringing where are the strings isolated on their own, or can they affect other strings around them?
Well, they're isolated.
You don't have a floating bridge.
You don't have the bridge is actually glued to the soundboard, which sounds kind of scary, but it's usually there for the long haul.
So good glue.
And on the bridge has pins that are angled like this, and so the bridge is also elevated, of course. So there's two functions. The string will have side bearing, so it's pressing. The string will go through multiple angles.
Yeah.
So side bearing on it, and then there's also.
Is that the bottom or the top?
This is at the top.
Okay.
So there's side bearing on the strings that are running through, and then there's also down bearing, so that just to keep the string taut the whole time.
Okay.
So there's actually multiple bearing points. The strings in a piano are, most of them are long. The ones at the very top are really short, but there's just a portion of that actually sounds. It's called the speaking length of the string.
Yeah.
And so everything has bearing on it from something else is not speaking length. So it'll be terminated back here somewhere. It'll be wrapped around a hitch pin.
Yeah.
Go through the bridge pins. Then you have the speaking length, which actually vibrates. Then it'll come across a bearing point in the front. I'm talking about a grand piano here.
Okay.
It's a similar process. In an upright, it's just this way. And then you'll have it terminate. There's a little hole in the tuning pin.
Yeah.
It goes through, and then it's wrapped around. It's coiled around. So when
and
you're
then
tightening this,
you have kind of the revealed point of the tuning
so
pin.
the tuning pin is actually about this long.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's actually driven into a block.
Because you just see the part that you see is like this long.
Yeah, it sticks up out of the
like an inch
plate.
or something.
Yeah, about like that most of the time. But they're driven into the pin block. The pin block is simply a block of hard maple wood.
Yeah, it's gonna be super hard.
Yeah, maple wood, and the holes are smaller than the pin. And then they're driven in at the factory. They're driven into these holes, and they actually have teeny tiny hair hair
kinda
fine
texture on
threads.
it? Yeah, okay.
They're threads, but
Okay.
it doesn't work like a screw. There's not matching threads in the wood. You know,
Okay.
it's just there for grip. You
Yeah.
know? And then speaking of which, that's why this is called a hammer. Incidentally, this is actually not a hammer functionally. It's simply a wrench. It just has a tip on it, and I move it. The reason it's called a tuning hammer is because back in the day, when they put these in the factory, they used a hammer. It was a hammer head on this side. They would drive the pins in the factory with the hammer,
Yeah.
and then flip it around
Yeah.
and use this to do the initial tightening of the pins,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So the name stuck, and this is still called a tuning hammer to this day,
Nice.
even though it is essentially a wrench.
So when I was using what I thought was my brilliant ear to tune our grand piano, I could briefly get the
Yeah.
unisons in tune.
Sure.
Because you had usually tuned it. It's just kids come by or Daniel comes by and
A string
bangs
slips
it
on
a
a
little
bearing
bit. Yeah.
point and it goes
And
out.
so I'm like, we're about to have this concert. I think I can do this. And I could very briefly get the unisons to sound really,
Yeah.
really nice.
Mhm.
And then they would just immediately leave.
Yeah, that you experienced what every piano technician experiences when they're learning, and you understand the tuning theory, you understand even the technique
Yeah.
that you're supposed to use, and your ears tell you that you've arrived at the correct pitch. They're all lined up. The
Yeah.
machine, if you're using the electronic tuning device,
Yeah.
it's telling you, hey, you're there. The peak is right on the target, right?
Woohoo!
Woohoo! The problem is, you just turned the end of the pin. The pin is sticking up like
So
this.
it is like flexed or
so
torqued
it's
or whatever.
torqued, and so if the part that's buried in the maple wood doesn't move,
Yeah.
then it's just going to unwind. So the way you have to learn to feel when you're pulling on the tuning pin or when you're trying to rotate it, it actually clicks. Not necessarily an audible click, although sometimes it does, but you feel it like click in the wood, and then you know that you've not permanently, but you've made a semi-permanent change. And then you just relieve that tension and see where it settles. It's
Yeah.
called setting the pin.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the opposite of what you described with the violin.
Yeah, I
because
was thinking
we
that.
we don't set it from below pitch, so we're not pulling up to the pitch. We pull up to the pitch and then go beyond the pitch. There are some other alternative ways,
Yeah.
but for the
But
for the
your-
sake of this discussion, the
Yeah.
vast majority of qualified piano tuners in the world will use this technique. You're clicking slightly past where your target is, and then you just nudge it back down. And that
if you're
stabilizes
foreseeing
the
this
pin.
and you're tightening, and here's like where your pitch would be. Okay, so I think we tune all our pianos to like A440. So
right.
it'd be like click is how you're trying to do it.
Yeah, the drop is usually like nudge, 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 and then we get there.
It kind of settles in.
Yeah.
Like when I'm ready for a nap and I have
Yeah.
a nice blanket.
And when I'm testing to see whether the pin is stable, I'll often take the tuning. So this is a pin, I've got it on the pin, and I will gently press down, so
Yeah.
like I'm trying to move the pitch, and see if I can make it sound,
Yeah.
move the pitch like a pitch wheel. Like, I see if the pitch will easily move.
Yeah.
If it will, I know I really don't have the pin set well. And do the same the other direction. So see if you can move it. And once you have it set, it tends to wants to be where it is, and that's the goal of setting the pin.
That's kind of the
Stable.
ultimate, like, you can buy this hammer, does not mean you can tune this instrument.
No,
Pretty crazy.
But if you can tune an instrument, this hammer does make it easier.
Yeah, you don't
It's
want to have one and not the other.
We talked about how light it was, but the main benefit of it being carbon fiber is that it's incredibly stiff. I think the hammer I started with is maybe here.
What is it you're doing there when you adjust that down there?
So this comes off
Oh, okay.
because it's sort of modular. This head,
Because I thought it was a fit. I thought you were actually changing this like a ratchet might
you
be. But I was like, I don't.
you can take the actual tip off as well, but this head right here, that's what this
Yeah.
is called, is manufactured at, I believe this one is a 15 degree. So if I set that perfectly flat,
Okay.
this angle is 15 degrees.
Okay.
So ideally, from a technique perspective, you would want one at 0 degrees or 90 degrees from the head because it's the
get
most stable.
maximum,
The
yeah.
problem is you would run into all the struts on the
Yeah,
piano.
yeah.
So
the problem
piano-
is you can't do that.
you can't do that. Yeah. So the metal plate in a piano has those struts that stick up like my hand is here and at different places in a grand piano. And if it were you would either have to have a tip that was this long, which causes its own instability problems,
Yeah.
flagpoling everything.
Yeah.
Or you would have to, or you have to have an angle on it in order to miss. And so the 15 is kind of a good compromise.
You just like have it by your fingertips. Can't quite get my.
Most pianos, the 15 degrees will easily clear most of the struts. Maybe it's a 10 because 15 is, I think, the big one. And the big one goes up at an even higher angle.
Yeah.
At any rate, this has some degree of, and I just kind of think of it as if you imagine a three-dimensional. If I spin this around, like the three-dimensional kind of cone shape that would make, I try to think of that in space, and that I'm moving in that plane because that eliminates what makes that bad. I'm not really moving things around.
Not too bad.
Yeah, I'm still stable. Yeah.
Well, I want to just say how commendable it is because Gary, and if you think about it, Gary was the man, and you were kind of coming in as competition.
Yeah.
Right? But yet he's still,
Yeah.
you became his right-hand man to the point that when he passed away this past year. Is it this past year?
It was March of this year. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's already about to be a new year.
I know. Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
It's crazy. Yeah. But you were asked to speak at his memorial on behalf of his family and give like a eulogy and stuff. And that is, that's just pretty awesome to be breaking into a new thing, essentially be direct competition, befriend him, become his right-hand man, help him do with all these rebuilds and restrings. Yeah, I feel like that's a huge blue ocean view type thing.
Yeah, Gary was
because he could have certainly been like, "What? I'm not teaching you what I know."
Yeah. I was very fortunate in that. I mean, he was just so kind anyway, and he was brilliant, and he was a good teacher, and he was so encouraging.
Crazy smart.
It's not hard.
Crazy intelligent.
If you want to invest some money, it's not hard to get educated as a piano technician. If you want to go just get educated, what is hard is finding a person that lives near you so that it's feasible to train you to do your apprenticeship so that you can be certified and actually know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to train their competition. But Gary, the combination of him just being an awesome person and the fact that he was slowing down, he just took me under his wing and just poured everything he could into me, which was incredible.
And Daniel reaps the benefits.
So does Brian.
I have the combo of Brian and Gary. That's pretty awesome. There is, I feel like that's just a pretty crazy story. And I love having our pianos tuned. I kind of talk about, I'm interested in your feedback on here.
Okay.
Because a lot of people listen to what I say even though I don't know what I'm talking about. Because we teach piano and we have pianos. And sometimes that's a little more relatable. It's like talking to someone who had the same car you had and they have a problem with that car. You kind of trust what they say versus the mechanic that might be trying to sell you stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So my thing with you is I just trust you to go, we need pianos tuned. And some parts of me is I wish we could tune it more, but practically our lesson pianos are getting just kind of banged on by, I don't say banged on because the teachers are good about doing that, but it's we're not even using the whole piano and we're trying to teach students to press a key down. So it's not the same as a performance venue.
Sure. No, it's not.
Or your nicer pianos.
It's not. No.
But my thing is always what's going to keep this piano kind of optimally operating versus it's out of tune, can you tune it? And what do you run into? So first of all, what's your recommendation? And what do you run into? Is the majority of people saying, hey, come tune my piano? Or they go, hey, based on you spending some time with this instrument, what gets me to optimal operation? What would you suggest?
So first of all, my suggestion typically with a family piano in a private home where it's not being used to teach, and it's not a performance piano, is typically just annual. And an annual tuning typically keeps. We talked about earlier the balance between, it's only in tune when you tune it. And annual is, for most people, a really good compromise between they can budget for that.
Yeah.
And when I show up, I'm still not having to move things a long, long way.
Well, a piano tuning, even if they have to do some extra work, or it's like, hey, I need to replace this piece, or there's some labor to come do this little thing or fix a pedal or something, you are generally well under a couple $100.
Yeah.
So that's just not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah. And
I mean, obviously, big things can happen.
To that point.
But we tell all of our students like twice a year, because you're doing your like your heating and air pump and stuff like that. It's like you have a major change in temperature and humidity.
Yeah.
Going into the cold season and then coming in the warm season.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I was going with that. So that's like the starting point. Like if because tuning a piano is putting all the strings back where they go in relationship to their neighbors, and your fourths, your fifths, your thirds, everything. You want it to sound good when you're done. If the piano itself isn't near the right amount of tension in the system, then you literally can't tune it. Like if I pull this string to where it's supposed to be, even if it doesn't break, by the time I get over here, this one's now out.
It's just
like
going too far,
and it's out again. And so we have to do what's called a pitch raise, which is we look like we're tuning a piano. What we're really doing is just lifting the tension on the piano up to a point where we can tune it.
Yeah.
And so that's extra time, extra cost.
Yeah.
So what an annual tuning does is it pretty much eliminates the possibility that the next time I come, I'm going to have to do some kind of extra labor to have it tuned, which is going to cost you extra money and extra time.
We were running into, I didn't even know this was happening until we went all virtual for a while when the government orders for COVID shut down in-person lessons. And we're playing with kids at home. And they're not even the same pitch. We can't even play with them because we're like, da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, oh my gosh, you guys need your piano tuned. Did you know that? So with a violin, it's coming into me every single week. I see their violin. Even once students can tune their own violin, I'm like, I want my hands on it every single week. What's this bridge looking like? Anything squeaking? Have the students been damaging it either inadvertently or just being too rough with it? Are they loosening their bow? Is it warping? We don't get to see that with our kids' pianos. So it's almost exclusively on you to be like, hey guys, go take a look at their pianos. You're spending a lot of money on music lessons. You spend a lot of time on music lessons. Like spend less than $500 a year to keep your piano.
Yeah, and
operating.
that's the annual would like prevent damage to the piano and keep you from having to have pitch raises. Like doing it twice a year, now you're getting to the range where if you are trying to play with another instrument, or someone
that's a huge thing.
Somebody's trying to vocally
play with
sing
other instruments. That's like the whole point.
Key, like you're going to be very close enough that you're not going to be like, what's wrong? Like something's off. And so, and some people have their piano tuned even more frequently than that if they're a high level pianist and they either
stop it.
Stop it. They're professional, or they really, they're a very advanced pianist that has a really nice instrument at home and they just like for it to sound nice. Then, it's totally appropriate that some people I tune their pianos every 3 months. Like just
that's awesome.
In a private home. But
I remember when I went to this awesome symposium at Juilliard, and this was a violin thing. And so they had some of the top internationally competing high school students coming up playing for us who are teachers. And then they'd have just a master teacher come and do a public, workshop type thing. And they would wheel out and tune these huge Steinways at Juilliard. They would tune them between each student's performance for the collaborative pianist. It wasn't a piano recital. That was so cool. Because it's just like, I'm certain they have one on staff. Like, so I guess once you have one on staff, it's like, hey, you gotta pay for yourself, buddy. But
and that at concerts,
but just nothing detracts.
Like where they have
away.
Intermission, like and the lights go down. Like usually, you'll have a technician going out and putting unisons back together, because especially if it's something very percussive or very
and it doesn't take them nearly as long. I would imagine,
because usually you have individual strings that are moving when you have that issue. But if they're playing like a repertoire from Rachmaninoff or something, like they probably beat the heck out of the piano. And so the technician runs out and very rapidly starts testing keys and putting strings back together because it will literally go out of tune that fast. Yeah.
Gary used to come to our house when I'm, 10, 11, 12 years old, and he'd always tell Mom, it's like, your son plays this piano real hard. Because we had some older pianos too, and I'd watch him, like, it's magical. And I know when you've seen a piano tuned, you just kind of what you said about the action. It's just like a tuner comes in and shows you the piano like you've never seen it. It's like, open this, I'm going to take this out, set it over here, I'm going to pull this out. And it's like, oh. And then if you get a chance to play it, it's like so much louder. It's right in your face.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing that with Gary all the time.
So tuning,
that was really cool.
Tuning a piano, it's kind of like, this thought just occurred to me, like getting a haircut. Like, there are people who,
when you need a haircut,
like you look like that looks like a fresh cut.
It's a fresh
looks like a fresh cut.
Yeah, man.
And I am on the other end of the extreme. I really need a
seriously.
haircut, which is why I have a hat on. You can see it just like puffing out. So and that's a good example. So if let's just say that your wife loves that particular look, the way it makes your face look, makes your head look. So in order to
believe
keep it,
me, Brian, she does.
to keep it looking like that, you're going to have to go back at least like next month.
Yeah.
And get them to trim it again. And
Yeah.
Will he look shaggy like a homeless man? No. But to keep it looking like that.
But if I'm on a movie set, they are touching it up every couple days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And so that
every
would be
week,
the person that wants the piano sounding optimum and tunes it frequently.
and that's probably like
And
they're making money from it.
so for me, my haircut, like, it's really, really bad right now, and it's like I know I need a haircut, not because my specific look is like missing, but because it's so long, I just look shaggy.
and after the haircut, you'll know the difference.
Yeah, after I get the haircut, I'll definitely know the difference. So a lot of people, too many people, call me when the piano is the equivalent of my hair. It's like it sounds awful to the average person.
Yeah.
If the piano sounds awful to the average person,
It's too long.
it's way overdue for.
It's like, hey, I need a new set of tires. Oh, are yours worn? Oh, they busted. No, yeah,
yeah, exactly.
They're off
That's
the
another
side
good,
of the freeway.
that's a good
somewhere.
example. So
we talk about that.
So
with
this is why,
streamers.
like, if you trust your technician and you put it on the schedule that they suggest for that piano, and sometimes annual is plenty. Sometimes it needs to be more frequent, and you just put it on a schedule and know that it's being taken care of and it's being tuned. And if I were to ask a lot of the people that I tune, once a year, or twice a year, or more, like, does it sound bad to you? Like, when I show up, if they're being honest, like, I mean, it still sounds okay to me.
I mean, that's like with me sometimes.
But I can literally show you what I'm doing. Like, I'm literally having to move things and put it back where it needs to be. So, I wish I could convince more people to, and I do. I have a lot. I have a lot of regular customers who are.
It's just
on a
like you
regular
appreciate
schedule.
when they value their instrument, and man, sometimes they pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of your favorite piano brands to tune, and what are some of your least favorite kind of setups in terms of? Because there's a lot of different piano configurations and sizes and all that.
There are
two or three go-tos. You're like, man, what a pleasure to tune this instrument.
Yeah, I like Yamaha uprights. They're Kawai uprights too. Like, they're just quality. They're readily available if you want to buy
you
one.
probably
It's not
run
like
into
a rare
them. Yeah.
thing. Some like older. This is much more rare, but
Physically, is
older
it harder
uprights.
to tune the upright than the grand?
It is. Selfishly, I wish every person that had a piano had a grand piano, and not because I'm so esoteric. I want it to sound wonderful. I just I do want it to sound wonderful, but selfishly, it's much easier to set in this posture like this, with my arm resting on top of the hammer.
Okay, yeah. Instead of
and
like
to
hanging
make the
off
motion, because you got to consider there's 220 something pins on the
Yeah.
average piano, and I'm messing with each of them at least twice.
You must
'cause I
have
go-
crazy forearm strength.
Actually, it's maybe I do, but it's funny. The force I use is usually from here.
Hold that thought.
What's
I forgot. I've been asking musicians this. This is a grip strength measurer because I wanted to go, okay, we got a classical violinist, a classical pianist, a classical guitarist. Does all this forearm work impact our grip strength?
Okay, I'm almost 50 years old, so
What?
we gotta.
Irrelevant. Well, I'll tell you what. We will factor that in. So I'll do a squeeze
Yeah.
and with my right, and you'll do a squeeze with your right.
Yeah.
And it's just peak. So I just kind of Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
It's at 0 right here. Okay, that was not a great pull right there, but that's okay. 124.4.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Nice solid squeeze.
So whenever I'm ready.
Yep. 3, 2, 1. Ah! What did we get? That was not good. We're just going to give you another try.
I felt like I hand just slipped off of it.
Okay, try your left hand. I do have a lot of... Oh, yeah. What the heck happened here? Okay, now I'm going to tell him your other one. So I got 124, and then he didn't quite pull 100, and then casually with his left hand pulls 131.
Yeah.
Wait.
I mean...
Maybe you're fatigued because you've been tuning pianos today.
Or maybe it's just repetitive use injury. Could be.
Big squeeze and 127.8. So I'm pretty even.
Yeah, you're pretty even.
So I'm going to hit start. Do your right hand again. Come on, Brian. Pull.
Yeah, it's still very low.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely more in the
It's
left.
tough to tell if it's fatigue or development because I
is.
probably wouldn't have guessed that your grip strength's stronger on your left
I
hand.
would not have either.
That's still a strong
I
pull.
don't notice that I have any issues with the right hand, but I mean, who knows?
I had this girl. I had all my students do it just for fun. Sometimes just a little icebreaker is great. And this girl, I think she's like 13, casually outpulled the rest of the women
That's funny.
teachers. So Margot had the record for a while. She's exceptionally competitive and tried it a lot. And then Becca, who's a pianist as well, but also does like some CrossFit stuff. Mm-hmm. She had the record for women, which was higher than your right hand. I'm just gonna Okay, well, you know, we try to set the record. We end up like jumping around and like bearing down. So, and then this girl, this little super sweet girl, she's like, "I'll do it." Like, and I looked at it and I'm like, "What?" I think she was at like 107 or something.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
You have to consider too that like I'm never.
You're not squeezing.
I'm not squeezing it, and when I pull, I'm not.
That's
I'm
interesting.
almost even when I. It takes a lot of force to make the pin actually move in the block,
Yeah.
but it's coming from here. So I want to feel everything in my fingers, and it's really hard to feel when you're doing this, right? So my hand is often just kind of laying there, just hooked around, and then I provide the force to move the pin from my lats, just like this, until it moves. So I'm almost never
like
gripping
squeezing
this,
it,
even with moderate force.
With your hand, you have your nervous wise. I'm not the expert here, but we have to learn some anatomy stuff here. So you have one nerve that comes through and kind of controls these fingers. They're buddies. And this is your long-term grip. So if you want to hang on to something for a while, these are doing it. These kind of lock in. And then these are your apply, squeeze kind of dynamic grip.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to grab onto something and not let go, these are going to like lock. Mm-hmm. They're not providing that much power. They can just lock in. But if you're trying to like squeeze someone's hand or like squeeze that thing, most of your power is coming from these two and your thumb squeezing in there like Eagle Town.
Also, I shattered that pinky.
Oh, that's a good point.
When this one has remained
unshattered.
You can see it's all crooked and
my dad has that. I think that's a rite of passage for men.
Is,
I've broken some pinkies, but
and
not
it actually
point.
hurts a little bit when I squeeze something really hard with this.
Really?
Hand. So maybe that's playing into that as well. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, you got plenty of power in the left hand. Your left hand surpasses both of mine. All right, I have a couple rapid fire questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Then we'll wrap this up. I think this is a good one. If you had 10x the resources, so a huge investment into your business to really try things, how would you do business differently? How might you go to just an uber premium model, or would you be building crazy stuff for fun, or would you?
Yeah, so I would I would do more rebuilding stuff where I'm investing myself. I'm investing in older pianos that are like really cool old pieces, and then just do full out,
the whole thing,
full out restoration, and then.
How many of those would you do in a year, you think? Like if you're working, because it's like a nice violin, the reason they're so expensive is like a maker can make like one or two a year.
Yeah, I mean, I could do more than that, but I mean, you're looking at probably 1 1/4 realistically, assuming that I'm going to keep doing my regular part of my job.
But that's pretty fun to do.
Oh yeah, it's so rewarding to take an instrument and just totally new felts, new string, pretty new, paint
What would
on
you
the
call
plate.
an older piano? Like how old? Because I know some of our pianos, I think, and our kind of stable feels fairly new, but we have like maybe the 90s or some of our older ones.
Yeah, and that's
That's
in
not
the piano
old.
world, that's not old. No,
Yeah.
that's not old at all. I would say, older than 50 is getting where, like, if it's not had some sort of restoration, is really that's the next step, is to do some sort of restoration on it.
This pencil made me think of the pencil
Yeah,
we got
yeah.
in our Grand.
Yeah,
but
you can tell them about that.
Okay, so the first Grand we got was the G2. It was a little bit older, but like I said, it sounded great. And that was to get us into kind of a Yamaha Grand. Like, let's get out of upright mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to play it, and I would knock it out of tune a lot. But as the fall board would come up, things could slide down in, and apparently a pencil did.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens as it leaves there? Because you lose sight of it. It goes in.
Well, sometimes it can sit on top of keys and you never know it, but it can bring this back up. Ugh. It can get
So if this goes down here and it sits like here,
it's-
or does it have to go farther?
well, it can slide. It can slide this way, go between keys. It can get
that's
under
true.
here, and then it's at some point it can.
We had like 4 keys,
like
4 or 5
here's
keys.
a good example. Like if it just
Yeah.
nestles back there, like the key now doesn't return to its normal spot, or it can even jam in
Ew.
these spots, and that's
We
really
did
bad.
not have that happen.
You did not have that happen.
So it was just like up here somewhere, and then you just couldn't push down at all.
Yeah, it can get right there as well.
And it's you're nervous when you spend a bunch of money on a piano. So then I brought you out, and you came and was like, "Oh yeah, I fixed it. It's working fine." And I guess you just pulled that out, and there was just a pencil there, and you removed it.
Yeah, you just pull the action out. It's like, oh, it's a pencil.
I don't even know that do you pull the action out to find that pencil if it's right near the front?
With an upright, I usually don't have to pull an action out. With
Okay.
a Grand, it's usually far easier.
Because you
I
don't
can
know that
just-
it's a pencil.
No,
You might as well just go.
if there's a key not working and I can't see immediately from the top, like what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like with a Grand, you can just take the cheek blocks, the fall board, key slip off.
Yeah.
Slide. I mean, I know it sounds like, oh yeah, but you just do this.
Yeah,
right?
obviously. Why not? I say this.
And you
Yeah, all
slide.
you have to do
and
is-
the action. So essentially, within 5 minutes of disassembly at most, on most grand pianos, I can now slide the action in my lap. So
Yeah.
it's just worth that investment in time.
Yeah.
Because once the investment can come,
But let me see what's
once
going
the
on.
action can come out, now I can examine anything I need, and it's usually much easier to troubleshoot when the action is actually out where I can look at it. And often there's a pen or a pencil or something just sitting
Yeah.
right there.
So then, fast forward several years,
Mm-hmm.
we were able to upgrade to like the Conservatory series, like the Yamaha C series, and we were able to make that next jump. And so we sold the other one to a Blair Academy family to put it in their house, and gave them a great deal on it and all this stuff. But it's still a major purchase, and so they're like, okay, we're gonna several $1,000s. And then a very nervous client called me or messaged me and was like, this piano was delivered and it doesn't work. The keys aren't being pushed down. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I feel terrible because I'm like, what? Did something happen during moving or
Right,
whatever?
right.
Because they're just trusting me that I'm selling this piano.
Sure.
And so I'm like, Brian, please, can you go out there and like I'll pay you whatever you need and I'll take care of it. And you go there and exactly the same as what happened to
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
They dropped a pencil down there.
Yeah.
And it was just
I see it.
hilarious.
I see it often in churches where there's like
Pencils.
people writing notes on the little hymnals and all. There's all sorts of things.
Listen,
on the-
musicians, you should always have a pencil nearby, first of all. Just
but
don't put
not
it-
on top of the piano.
inside.
Yeah, that's a service call for me to take a pencil out of the
Yeah.
action.
Okay, this is a game I've played with a lot of my guests. This is a 60-second pitch for each other's business. So you are going to, I'm going to tell people why they need to have their piano tuned and why they should have me tune it, as if I'm you. And then you're going to tell people the benefits in studying violin at Blair Academy.
Yeah, shoot.
And then we kind of rank each other and
Easy
give
peasy.
each other a grade and say...
On the pitch?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like I've pitched voice and guitar and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And then we go like, I really like that you say this. I think this, or like, hey, this is actually kind of a misnomer. I wouldn't normally say this unless someone asks.
All right.
You want to go first or
Sure.
second? Okay, here we go. 60-second pitch for how violin can improve your life at Blair Academy. And go.
So Blair Academy is the most thorough music curriculum that you can take in this entire region. Like, there's no way to get a better in-person music education than to come to Blair Academy. One of the primary examples I would use is some of the marketing materials you said were like it says has music crossed out, and it says confidence lessons. And because I have 2 children currently enrolled at Blair Academy, I can say this, that is absolutely true. So they don't just take you through the music curriculum. They inspire confidence. They give you habits that even if you don't pursue music at any level once you get older, you're going to take those lessons with you as an adult in your career, in your relationships, just your character. And so
How about the violin?
Oh yeah, violin is awesome.
You have 5 seconds.
And how can you not want to do it after you watch Daniel do it? That's the
Bang.
Okay, I guess I got off track of violin.
No, that's
there,
okay.
but,
It was a good pitch. I like
Yeah.
it. I actually think we have a Google review from you on our regular handout pamphlets. We have 4. We've rotated some
Okay.
through.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But there's a handful, and it's like,
Yeah, cool.
There's some things people just word things really nice. I don't remember what yours said exactly, but you kind of want to have representation of different ages and them saying different things.
Yeah, I
think
often
you
have
talked
to
about
qualify,
the
like
confidence
because I recommend you guys all the time to people,
Yes.
out in the field, and I always often have to
down in the
qualify it
trenches.
because obviously relationships that we have with
Yeah,
friends
yeah.
and family and all that. But like it's true. Like I am so glad that my kids take lessons here, and for all of the reasons that I mentioned and
Well-
many more. And so I usually am able to communicate that, I think, pretty effectively.
I am big on some people, and I don't fault them for it, it's just not me. They think if you have a friend or a personal relationship with someone, you must use them.
No.
And I'm like, but if you're taking your business seriously, like you could be an HVAC tech
Yeah.
that you do kind of on the side, and that relationship, like even if we're friends, I kind of know you don't take it seriously or something.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to use you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean,
And so I like that with Blair Academy too. It's like I would rather be evaluated on the strength of our program, or our students, or our teachers, and not necessarily.
And to your point, also there are people that I run into and I find out a little bit about them, and I wouldn't recommend you. I think you're the greatest music
Yeah,
school
yeah.
in the
I mean,
region.
that's part of
but
being
maybe I
focused.
know they have a very very limited budget, and they really just
Yeah.
their specific need that they're looking for, you're overkill for them.
Yeah.
Right. And similarly, if someone has an instrument
and we're usually full and have a waiting list.
if they
if you know they can't get in,
right. I mean,
Yeah.
or for me, if they have no interest in keeping their piano like maintenance, it's just that it's been 20 years since it's been tuned, and
Or it's a gift.
Is there somebody I can pay $60 to come and just put my piano in tune?
No.
Well, not me.
I like that
It's not
we're
me.
kind of aligned in that. Like we want to have a premium product. So if you think, going back to the car analogy, you can find someone in your church, you got a little car or something that'll change your oil for a very small amount. They're just kind of helping you out, whatever. And maybe that's like $50 or something, $40. I don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I don't even.
All right. But you can go to a place, especially if you trust them, they're going to change your oil. They're going to look at some kind of light maintenance things. They're going to rotate your tires. Maybe they even wash and detail your car. That's like a more premium service. So for the academy, that's what we want to be, is that we know that maybe some awesome lady at your church will come to your house and teach you lessons. Because she might be doing it to give back or just to make some extra money on the side. But I want a place where you can discover friendships with other high-level musicians. You're getting kind of the whole team of teachers. You're getting our relationships with universities and competition sources. You're getting the ability to do ensembles and performances and stuff like that. And even like filming, Blair on the Air and stuff. And you're paying for us to bring in nice pianos and to tune them frequently and stuff like that. So I like that your piano approach is like I think you do like a 2-pass
Yeah.
all the time now, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
No.
If you were trying to maximize
as many pianos
in
as
and
I could
out,
fit
in
in
and
a
out.
day,
Yeah.
I would definitely not do that, for sure. I would. I want to invest in a level of professionalism for what I do, and in order to do that, I need to be able to do it full time.
Yeah.
Not just as a side gig that I kind of do on the side. I need to be able to do it full time, and in order to do that, I have to make a certain amount of revenue, and so I want to be able to make sure that people get called back, that I'm communicating with them, that I show up when I say I'm going to show up, that I don't project like a bad vibe in people's homes, that they like me. That
I mean, that's an underrated quality because they won't call you back.
It all goes into professionalism, and being a competent technician is just one piece of that. It's a necessary piece, but it's just
we
one
have a
piece
family
of the puzzle.
that we recommend, like, hey, your son or daughter's getting really good at piano and you want to take it to the next level. They have a lot of resources, and we recommend, it might be a $40,000. I'm a big Shiguru fan. 2 of our families have gotten Shigurus. And they're like, oh man, what a great instrument. And it's like, let me think of the cheapest piano tuner I can find to take care of this investment. It's just like, it's not the case. That being said, I think you're extremely reasonable. You've always been awesome to us and come in and tune a million pianos.
Yeah.
Okay, where I need to do my pitch for you.
Okay.
Does your piano need attention? That's on his website. It says, your piano wants attention. Listen, the piano is one of the most complete instruments that can be played solo. You can play with other instruments. You can sing. People spend thousands of dollars on lessons. They spend tens of thousands of dollars on a piano. And often, after all that investment, they don't keep it up for a few $100 a year. And the advantage of having an expert look inside of it and regularly tune it is worth, especially in our region, a tremendous amount, because there's a shortage of piano tuning availability and occasionally dependability. So when you pay someone for their service, you are now on their client list, and if they get too full, they are likely going to still take care of you. And so you want your piano to sound good, but you also want to have someone that will answer your phone when you call. Bang. Okay.
Hired.
That's what I got. Yeah, so I give you an A+ for Blair Academy, and then I can't really rank the pitch on the violin.
Yeah, because I didn't do
But that's
it.
okay. That's okay. I like people to know that the violin is difficult. That's kind of its thing.
Yeah.
Is being difficult.
Yeah,
And to temper your early expectations. It's worth it, but it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, you have to learn how to make a decent sound come out of it.
Yeah, so
At
I
least
love
on
about the piano.
If you hit an E,
You get that
an E's
button
going to come
down.
out. Like, if you've had a tuner come by,
If you've had a tuner come by. All right, favorite tool in your toolkit?
Right, it's this.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I'm comparing it against
Yeah,
other
it's-
things.
yeah.
What we kind of talked about, what skill sets kind of set you apart. Dinner with 3 people, dead or alive. What would be a stimulating conversation?
This is going to seem so just weird, but
It's me, isn't it?
I'm not going to list someone I can go to.
Okay.
Although those are highlights of my weeks, yes, for sure.
Okay, so there's your wife.
Yes. No, I'm going to say I like to read biographies of like really interesting, famous people, and I've read dozens of them over the years. And there's 2 that like stand out as just like, how can one person encapsulate this much like interesting knowledge and like one man? And so 2 people, I know it said 3, but 2 that come to mind is Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
And Leonardo da Vinci. Like
That's
having those, if I could
I'll
get
be
those
the
2
third.
guys,
I will be.
Yeah,
the
okay,
third.
yeah, you can join me. Yeah. So if I could get those 2 guys at like the same table and just like,
What do you guys? That
just-
would be the cool part, is getting them
incredible.
together.
Like,
and seeing
so
what
if you
happens.
haven't, I can't remember.
If you haven't heard of Benjamin Franklin,
that's a good point. Everyone has heard of him. But if you've never actually read, I can't remember the guy's name. He's an author. He's a famous biographer.
Yeah.
But there's like it's about this thick, so don't be intimidated. But there's Isaac something, I think, is the guy's name. Anyway,
He did.
it's
He
a
did
biography.
one on Steve Jobs as well.
Steve Jobs, also Albert Einstein, which is also fascinating, by the way.
Yeah, I'm too stupid to talk to these
But
people.
the one on Benjamin Franklin is absolutely just, it's mind blowing. And so I think I just want to talk to that guy, be like, especially in the context of like modern history, like
Yeah,
he didn't get the
Hey, did you
experience.
see this?
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
Yeah.
You want to meet Elon Musk? Some people are just crazy. I would have to meet a violinist or sit down with.
Yeah.
I mean, Yo-Yo Ma would be awesome. He does a thing called cello support. It's like the tech support thing where he was answering, I don't want to say dumb questions because they're not, but the gap from like any old cellist could answer these questions, but like Yo-Yo Ma's taking the time to do it. All these kind of beginner questions. And he did it with so much like poise and compassion because he just loves that instrument. And that was pretty awesome.
That's
Van Gogh or Heifetz or Yo-Yo Ma, like any of the greats, I would want to sit down with. Okay, I'm gonna go biblical. I got to figure out what's going on with King David. I got to hear his point of view on what the heck happened. It has to be like later in life. And be like,
Speaking of biographies, man,
and be like, okay, man. So started off young, killing lions and bears. You went a little off the rails many times. Yeah. So I think Van Gogh, biblical King David. I don't know if they would go good together.
I don't know.
Or not. That's awesome. And then we'll kind of wrap up. What's some rewarding moments in your industry? And these can be underrated, very small moments, if you like, or they could be like, hey, I was able to tune this for this event. It really meant a lot. But I have a lot of like sound check before a big show. The first time my violin's turned on, and they're like, hey, can we get signal from violin? I'm like, it has to be a big show. It's not a little show because you don't want to, if you're in a place that you play all the time, we're both on the worship team at our church. Mm-hmm. If you're a place that you play all the time, you just kind of want to not cause too much issue for the tech team and stuff. But it's like you're at an outdoor event, you're at a new stadium type thing. It's for the first time, everyone's getting their mix. And you just get to play and feel your instrument or voice fill this new room for the first time. Mm-hmm. Like that's just thump, thump, thump. Also walking in before everyone's there, it's a big event.
Yeah.
But what are some in your career?
I can think of two really quickly. One,
like, man, this is it. This is awesome.
One happened earlier this year. I was tuning at a nursing home, and it was a new client. And it was the piano was just in a cafeteria area. It was empty when I started, but people start shuffling in, and some of them are being wheeled in wheelchairs, and they're just sitting, congregating, talking, and they're mildly interested in what I'm doing. But when I finished tuning the piano, because of my audience, I thought, I'll just play some hymns.
Yeah.
I started playing the hymns, and they just start like gravitating toward the piano, like gathering around. And like there was one little lady, like she had tears coming out her eyes. She had her eyes closed. And when I finished, they all like applauded. It was like I had a little crowd, which I'm not a pianist, which Daniel can attest.
But I also say
tuner.
that I'm not a pianist, so we're in the same boat.
Well, we're not in the same boat. if this is Daniel not being a pianist, and this is me not being a pianist.
In the world of not being a pianist.
Anyway, we're not going to argue about that. I was playing hymns, and they like just applauded and clapped. And even though what I did for them unintentionally had nothing to do with me tuning the piano. I mean, maybe indirectly
hopefully
it sounded
was
better.
Did you do it after?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go.
But it was just kind of like, it just felt very rewarding because they were so happy that I was there and I had played, and it was like their day was made, and I was just like, wow, that just felt really good. And the other was, I had a lady like 3 years ago call me from Grundy, Virginia, which is like 2 hours and 30 minutes away from here, and there's no good way to get there. As another guy said, you have to go somewhere else to start. Like, it's just no way to get there. So she called me and asked if I'd come tune her piano, and I just politely declined. I explained that it was so far outside my range, my normal range, that it just would be prohibitively expensive, even if I charged her travel fees or anything. It just wouldn't make sense. And so she was persistent. She said, look, there's no one. I can't find anyone remotely close to here to tune a piano. And I said, look, if you if you can find at least a couple of other people or churches near where you live, then I will get up the crack of dawn. I'll make the drive to Grundy. We'll tune all those pianos.
I mean, that's like 5+ hours of driving.
In one day. And so then it doesn't make any sense if I can't do multiple pianos. So then you're talking about a very long day.
Yeah. How many can you tune in a day? How many do you like to tune a day?
4 is like a kick butt. That was a good day.
If you're driving in between places, how many appointments might you set? Still 4? Or?
3 is more normal, like in that kind of thing. I can do 4 if someone is willing to do it pretty early in the morning or like a later afternoon.
I mean, because we have, how many do we have here? Maybe 8 or 7?
Yeah, well, I mean, if there's several, if I'm tuning here or a college or whatever, I can do.
I wouldn't want you to come do 6 in a day or something, because I want you at your best.
At this point, it used to be, now these numbers change over time. It used to be 3 was about what I could do.
Ear fatigue.
By the time I got to the 4th, I was really starting to mentally and to some degree physically wear down, especially if they're all uprights. Now 4, I feel good about doing a good job on 4 pianos in a day's time.
You just pump yourself up before you're tuning the 5th piano. You open it up and you're like pulling. Be the change you wish to see in the world. What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Maybe maybe there will come a point where 5 isn't, but I don't know that I see that happening.
Well, physically, you're probably so much better at it now too that it's not the same
and effort. It's also you get faster without compromising quality, because like Gary explained to me years ago, like every piece of technique that you pick up that saves you time on a string, you multiply that on each pass 220 something times. So if you save 5 seconds, you multiply that by 220, whatever that is, then
so if you do a 2 pass on 4 pianos, you are tuning maybe a couple thousand strings.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Now you know why I don't squeeze it.
All right, so you asked this lady. Did I answer the question? You asked this lady if she could get.
Oh yeah. I got completely off track. And I wanted to be real with her. Like I felt, I'm very. It's hard for me to say no. I'm compassionate. I'm easygoing. I'm not really a blunt.
No, you got other clients. You have a family.
But I wanted to be real with her, so I said to her, not only do you need to get other people that I can tune the same day, but I don't want to chase logistics. I don't want to be calling 4 different families, figuring out where the addresses are, who can go what time. No, they need to be 11 o'clock. I was like, you guys figure that out. You let me know where I need to go first, second, third, what the addresses are, contact information, and we'll make it happen. And she was a trooper, man. You
gave her a path to what she needed.
She 2 days later, she says, "I have 4. I have me, neighbor,
she probably paid
this
for all
other
of them
person, and then there's our church, and this lady needs to be gone by 11:30. So if you could go to her place first, I know it's going to take you a while to get up here. So if you can go to her place first, then come to mine, and then on your way out, it will make sense if you go to this person. She said it'll be fine at this time of day, anytime in here. And then the church is literally on your way out of town, going back toward home, and it doesn't matter what time you go there. So I would just do that last. She had everything laid out, and so we
hire her.
I told her, I said, you're amazing. So we did it. And it felt they were so appreciative. Every person, awesome. They were so appreciative that I came and tuned their pianos that it was not easy. And I stay busy enough. I don't need to drive to Grundy, Virginia to tune a piano. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I got up the crack of dawn, drove the 2.5 hours there. Then I got home. It was past dinner time. It was near bedtime when I got home. It was a tough day. And I tuned 4, by the way. It was not 3. It was 4. But they were so appreciative that it felt so good that I filled that need for them. Yeah. And we turned it into an annual tradition. So now once a year, we schedule it.
Awesome.
I drive to Grundy. Yeah. I drive to Grundy. I tune those same 4 pianos and then come home. And so, that's definitely one of the things.
That's the magic sauce. I'm glad we got to that. Because that's how I feel about our whole area too. Is I want big city opportunities in a smaller market, although our area is growing and stuff. But you're doing that on a whole other level to the rural outskirts.
Yeah. And I get requests all the time from from outside of our area, and sometimes I do, it doesn't work out. But even in those cases, I do try to spend a few minutes to maybe
Like, is this possible?
help them. Well, either that or I'll help them find someone in their area.
You
that they-
regularly drive well over an hour.
Oh yeah. I mean, my regular range is I live in Gray, which is the outskirts of Johnson City. So if you go 60-minute radius from my house and just draw a circle, so like
Yeah.
a 2-hour circle.
So you got
that's
like
my
kind of
normal
Tri-Cities.
range. And the way that I'm able to do
Bristol,
that
Abingdon,
is I
Elizabethton,
just try to
Virginia.
schedule, like I'll schedule Irwin and Elizabethton together, or Roan Mountain and Elizabethton together.
Yeah. And then you've got
But
some
then I've got
universities plopped different
Abingdon,
places.
out that way, even so far as like Emory and Henry and Emory, Virginia. So I'll put Abingdon's and Glade Springs like in the same day, because
Yeah,
you can't.
that's smart.
There's no way I can go
Yeah.
from Rome Mountain to
Yeah.
Emory, Virginia. Like it just doesn't work. But so I have a pretty big range to start with.
It would be cool if you were like the helicopter piano tuner.
Yeah,
Just drop.
I'm gonna have to up my rates.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. This
Yes,
is the
thank
Blair on the Air podcast. I'm Daniel Blair, Blair Academy for the Arts. This is Brian Lynch with BD Piano. Where can they find you?
So BD, that's Brian Daniel, bdlynchpiano.com is my website. There's a nice little easy to use form on there. You just click the button.
It is pretty awesome.
You fill it out. It takes like 3 minutes, and I get it within a few minutes, and we
Blair
start a
Academy
conversation.
students get a discount.
Yes, you
with
do.
Brian.
Yes, you do.
Sorry, everyone else. You can.
Come
There's
be a
room
student,
for
yeah.
more. The gift that keeps on giving. Anyway, thanks, man. Thanks for
yeah.
coming by. Thanks for tuning our pianos. We will see you next time.